I'm Tom, otherwise known as the Grung Master, and welcome to the channel. On this channel, we like to talk about all things tabletop RPGs, from world building to running your own session, to character creation and what to steal from modules for your own games. I hope you enjoy the video. Give it a like, a subscribe, and make sure you stick around for the next one. Thanks. Today, I want to talk to you about why your next D&D character should be a Grung. Now, what is a Grung, you might be asking? Well, they are small, amphibious, tree frog creatures, about 2 to 3 feet in height, that could be your next player character in Dungeons and Dragons. Based on a sort of caste system, small Grung tadpoles are placed in hatcheries where they will develop and mature, eventually gaining a colour. It is these vibrant neon-esque colours that define the Grung race as a whole. Green Grung, for example, are basic labourers. They are not allowed to take any responsibility or high position in Grung society. Whereas if one is born a gold Grung, then you are destined to be a king. With various colours in the middle, such as purple and orange, these are definitely the most colourful player race, perhaps in a literal and metaphorical sense. Grung are so localised to their subtropical climates, their jungles, their swamps. They need them to survive. For goodness sake, if a Grung doesn't bathe in water for an hour a day, they begin to take points of exhaustion. After 6 of these days, a Grung is likely dead. Now, why would you want to play a small frog person? Other than the fact that they sound pretty awesome already. The number one reason you might want to play them is because they're something different. How many times have you walked into a game to find that you are the third elf of some description, half or otherwise? It's not too often that the more exotic races get a fair chance, especially because the Grung have the distinction of being the literal last pick on D&D Beyond. This is partly because the Grung were released in an additional supplement, not a regular source book. Now, I would argue that one Grung above, the source for Grung, is just as valid a source in your D&D games as Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, which is a Magic the Gathering setting. Why not allow Grung? Why not let Grung have the spotlight for a moment? Why not convince your DM to have a little outpost of frogmen out in the jungle with purple, green, orange and gold skin who go around poisoning things with the poisons that they secrete from their own body and have their own society based in the treetops? That's something easy to put in your game, especially if it's out of the way. Other than wanting to play something different, Grung offer a massive opportunity for anyone interested in roleplay or building out a coherent story for yourself and your character. They come from this ready-made society, this caste system based on the specific neon colour of a frog's skin. They are given specific roles in society. Green Grungs, for example, are labourers doing menial, boring tasks that no other Grung would see themselves dead doing. Red Grungs are spellcasters and shamans of the tribe, whereas Orange Grungs are elite warriors, servants only to the Gold Grung king or queen. With such an interesting and clearly delineated society, Grung have a reputation for being evil and cruel, only bolstered by the fact that they secrete poison from their skin, which they use for hunting creatures and humanoids, in some of the lore at least. Now, there's no requirement to abide by any of that slightly darker part of the D&D lore, where Grung are known to kidnap and put humanoids into a poison-induced stupor to have them do simple tasks for them. There's no need. But if you want to play that as part of your evil society that you've escaped from, or if you're simply an evil character, in an evil game, and everyone at the table is okay with it, then why not bust out some of that slightly darker edge? Another reason why you might really want to play a Grung is that they are the classic fish out of water. Nothing screams fish out of water more than being 2 or 3 feet shorter than everyone else, having neon skin and excreting poison so that even a simple handshake with you can be deadly. There is nothing more fun than playing a character that is completely not au fait with the laws, rules and regulations of whatever land they've stepped into. And if your D&D campaign is a simple, generic, European fantasy setting, oh my word, would a Grung shake that right up. A poisonous little man walking around with utter disregard for anything but the social hierarchical structure of law. It's a very interesting dichotomy to play around with. So speaking of being a fish out of water, the roleplay opportunities offered by the Grung race are massive. They have a water dependency, which means that if they don't spend some time every day immersed in water, then they start to take levels of exhaustion and can eventually die. This creates a massive real threat if you're traversing a desert setting, and gives you an immediate reason to care about whether it's raining, sunny, or the ground is dry in the middle of a drought. Your Grung is suddenly far more invested in the world because they need a specific natural resource simply to live. In addition to that, the roleplay opportunities offered by having such a strange and stratified culture, especially one that is often hidden away in jungles and swamps, is really astounding. And if that is the case, why not let your players just put a tiny little tribal village of frogfolk over in one corner of the map and have them wander freely from that village and find adventure? Finally, let's talk about mechanical things that Grungs can do, as opposed to some of the other races. Number one, I've already discussed it a few times: poisons. Grungs all secrete poison from their skin and can use them to augment weapon attacks, which is a super interesting characteristic that I don't believe any other race has. It's an inbuilt way of adding some damage and some saves to your attacks and making them slightly more deadly, even from first level. These toxins can be used to cause hallucinogenic effects or poison your enemies on contact with your skin, and yes, that does include lay on hands and cure wounds, so there's some jeopardy involved in trying to heal your party Grung, or if your party Grung is the healer. Additionally, Grung are one of very few races that have a climbing speed, and although they don't have a swimming speed, despite being amphibious, it stands them in very good stead to have an extra way of moving around. Grung are some of the best jumpers in Dungeons & Dragons. They can leap 25 feet in a standing long jump and 15 feet up in the air. The mobility of these guys is amazing, even though they only have 25 feet of walking speed. As I mentioned earlier, you have a water dependency. How you solve that is up to you. I've known Grung characters to carry around gigantic barrels or be involved in seafaring adventures simply to alleviate their need for water. So now that I have extolled the virtues of Grung at length to you, how do you play a Grung? Because I've told you why. Well, I've put together a character that uses some of the things we've talked about today to develop a really interesting role-play combat synergy. A character that uses the nature links that Grungs automatically have through their environment, that uses the cast synergy as a kind of jumping off point to adventure. So, to that end, let me share with you our green Grung friend, who was once a simple labourer in the tadpole hatcheries, simply tending to the tadpoles and making sure they grew up into the colours they were destined to be. But they also flirted with magic and nature This character is a ranger, a swarm keeper to be exact. As they tended the swampy hatcheries, they became acquainted with the natural spirits that called them their home. The insects, the mosquitoes, the flies that hovered around these pools. This character found solace in the natural world and learned to cast natural magic eventually. However, this was not on for a green grung. They were considered to be getting above their station, and so kicked out, exiled from the grung tribe. With no one to count on and nowhere to go, this grung fell back to the natural world. Asked their mosquitoes and flies to help them, becoming a swarm keeper ranger, taking a few of their tadpoles from the hatchery for good measure. They scooped them into a basket, filled it with water, and set out on their way. With the far traveller background, this character could show up anywhere in any world with a basket full of tadpoles 3 months away from hatching that they've somehow got to find a new home for. Hopefully, a home beyond the simple prejudices of green, blue, purple, and orange. They're looking for something more. They're a stranger in a strange land. The only reminder of home that hovers around them is a cloud of insects from these swampy hatcheries where they spent their days, learning natural magic and coming into touch with their maternal or paternal side, or their simple parenting instinct, as frogs can be fluid when it comes to gendered assignments. Yes, this character does have shades of the frog lady from The Mandalorian. They are a swarm keeper ranger now. They use darts and daggers, poisoning them with the toxins on their own skin to throw at their enemies who tried to do anything that would harm them or the tadpoles on their back. With a swarm keeper ranger additionally, these thrown attacks can actually be used to maneuver enemies or deal extra damage as your insects go along with them, or even to give yourself extra movement. This whole concept ties in really well with the natural surroundings of the grung, the swamp and the forest. This character is a ranger. They are attuned with the natural world and have spent so much time hunting and foraging that they are a master of their craft. As such, being attuned to these poisoned weapons that grung use traditionally for hunting makes them super interesting. And as we discussed earlier, they are the perfect fish out of water. And indeed, the perfect adventurer. Because what better motivation to go out and see the world than being entirely kicked out of your home and having nothing to lose and a lot to gain by finding a new home, all the while completely oblivious of the social conventions of the outside world because they've grown up in the treetops of a swampy jungle where no one ever goes, or rather, those who do venture there never come back. So, if you've ever wanted to play a grung, or if I have convinced you to do so in this video, take a look in the link downstairs. You should see a copy of that character that you can bring to your own games. Please do, and let me know how it goes. I hope I have convinced you to play a grung in your next D&D game, because they are amazing. Being so small and so adorable and yet so very naturally deadly. There's such a wonderful dichotomy about the grung's very existence, and I for one am really glad that they were published at all as a playable race. Somewhat balanced officially by Wizards of the Coast. If your DM won't let you play a grung, please send them this video. I hope these reasons have convinced you to play a grung or allow grung to be a playable race in your game. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please give me a like and maybe subscribe, and definitely put a comment in the comments to tell me what sort of topic I should tackle next. Thank you for watching. I've been the Grungeon Master. See you in the next video.